So thank you for doing this interview with me. I know it's a very hard subject to do. It's very sensitive with many people. But for my personal project, I have chosen the area of interaction of community and service in relationship to 9/11. So I'm doing interviews with people in my community that I feel meant something during that time and played an important factor, and I believe you and our back were one of them. To start, I just want to ask you a few background questions about your experience of 9/11. Can you tell me where you were and your experience on that day? You can short answer or long answer if you would please.
Okay. I was at PS 234, the elementary school on Chambers Street, where you went to school. I was in the yard of the school when the events of 9/11 happened. I was there to help you and the other kids in the school to get safely out of the school. I took you and your brother home and sheltered some of our friends who had no place to go. And we stayed at the house and helped some other people until that night was over. That day was over.
After that day, did you leave New York or did you stay?
We left New York the day after 9/11, so September 12th, because it didn't feel safe in the house. The winds had shifted and there was some very toxic smoke or air coming into our loft. You and your brothers were coughing a lot and feeling really uncomfortable. So we left. And we stayed away for a week until we really felt like we needed to come home and be part of the neighborhood.
Moving ahead 10 years from that day to today, do you think that the events of that day and after affected your life and who you are today? Why or why not?
I think they changed my life. It was a very significant year for me, not just, I think what I tell people a lot is it wasn't just the events of that particular day, it was what happened after that day, of how people coped with the shock, the tragedy, and the recovery of the world, but specifically our neighborhood. So I think it changed me forever, and I think it changed me in good ways.
So now moving on to more of the focus of my topic, the effects of 9/11 changed the world, and we all know that. But what I'm interested in is how it affected the community and, more importantly, Tribeca. 9/11 definitely connected community and got people to do service. So soon after the events of 9/11, do you think you had a role in your personal community, friends, family, in service? This could be anything from talking to a friend or family member or volunteering.
Well, I think my life pretty much became about volunteering. For whatever reason, if you remember, after 9/11, your whole school was evacuated. You couldn't go back to your school. And we became a kind of nomadic tribe, going from one location to another until we found a place to settle down as a school. I became actively involved in that nomadic tribe, but also in the resettlement of the tribe in a school. And I stayed at the school every day to help the teachers, help the children, help the staff, just get through every day. And I took on kind of a big project, as it turned out, in that I began to respond to all the people around the world who had reached out to your school, to PS 234. I answered letters, I sent out messages when people asked if there was anything we needed. I greeted people when they came to visit us, whether they be people who just wanted to make sure we were okay, or musicians. So I became a part of a much larger community, and thankfully so. I mean, it was something that I did because I saw there was a need for it, because so many of us were affected by the shock of 9/11 and its aftermath, that we couldn't go back to the school, that many of us were evacuated from our houses. People were living in hotels, people left the city. So there was a great need for people who could provide kind of stability, whether it be as a friend. You know, I had a lot of friends who had issues that came up after 9/11, whether it be children who were frightened, or parents who were worried. And I tried to be a friend to those people. They tried to do the same to me, but I guess I did become part of a larger community in looking after the PS 234 community, and that hasn't changed. I'm still there. I work there now full time.
During the course of the past 10 years, do you think your personal experience of 9/11 has affected your feelings of personal community and service?
Absolutely. I think that what fulfills me, what feeds me, is being a mother and a wife and a sister. I think that what feeds me is being part of a community at the school and of Tribeca, which I feel very bonded to, especially the people who kind of went through that year, or that event and that year with me. We have a permanent bond that I think will never be broken, and it's a very special thing.
Do you think your particular experience of 9/11 has changed you?
Yes, I can say that pretty quickly and pretty definitively. I think that I have to say that the events of that day were pretty frightening, and there were some concerns I had about our safety during the event and after. And I think that my internal kind of gratitude that we were okay, and that our friends were okay, and that our community was okay, have changed me, in that I find that every day I tell you guys I love you, and every night I tell you the same thing, and I'm grateful for, I truly am grateful for each day.
Thinking about your community, and by that I mean your friends, your family, and your neighborhood, what change do you see, if any, in those?
Well, that's kind of a two-pronged thing. There's a little double edge to that, because I see that the community of Tribeca after 9/11, well, let me just say one thing. There was the tremendous community in Tribeca before 9/11. You know, I had lived here for many years as a young person, before I was married, as an artist and living with an artist or whatever. But, and it was a fantastic community at that time of artists and writers and interesting people who needed a place to live that wasn't expensive. So it was a fantastic community before 9/11. After 9/11, the strength of our community really shone. There were people, you know, community activists, artists, writers, just plain old people who lived in Tribeca, that showed their best side by giving of themselves in any way that they could to help the community rebuild itself. Unfortunately, this is the other prong, one of the negative effects, I think, of 9/11 has been that a lot of organizations, national, federal, unfortunately, the other prong of this Tribeca community thing is that, and this is the downside, I would say, is that after 9/11, for some reason, the federal government and the state government decided it was up to them to rebuild our community, even though they had never been involved with our community before this. They decided that they had to do a lot of things to help us rebuild, and as a result, they began huge political discussions and arguments about what would be the best thing to do. We now have tremendous overbuilding in Tribeca and crowding and not enough spaces in the schools, that kind of thing, that I think have really been the downside for Tribeca. There's a new community of people who are here that came in as a result of the real estate incentives after 9/11, and I have mixed feelings about that. But it's a very vibrant community, albeit a little bit crowded and maybe a little overbuilt.
In your opinion, overall, would you say that you feel or experience from your community positive or negative effects from your story of 9/11 10 years later?
I can only say positive. You know, as I said before, the events after 9/11 changed my life dramatically for the better. I think I had always been interested in volunteerism and service to my community, but I think that increased and really provided an anchor for me that, you know, certainly 9/11 was difficult for me, and I think that giving of myself and giving to a community really did provide kind of a base of operation or foundation for me to sort of strengthen myself and move forward and give to others. So it was very powerful and continues to be so.
Thank you.
Thank you.